Hey guys, good evening. My name is Dr. Nathan Thompson with the Wellness Way Yorkville. Happy Monday, guys. Just going to do a quick sound check, make sure that everybody can hear me the way they're supposed to. Oh, we can. All right, awesome. All right, so guys, um, topic for tonight. Happy Monday, by the way. Hope you guys have had an awesome, blessed weekend. Topic for tonight are questions to ask your doctor. And I realize I am going a little bit earlier, but just so that I can get home and be able to have dinner with my family. Um, and be able to see my youngest, who's a year and a half old, before he goes to bed. It's important for me to see him. I cherish and I value every moment that I can spend with him. But I want to make sure that I'm going live, giving you valuable content. And tonight I'm going to go over questions to ask your doctor. Okay. If you can find time to ask a question to your doctor, these are questions that I would love for you to be able to ask. So if you are watching right now, make sure that you say hello. Let me also know where you're watching from. I like to see where people are watching from. So just go ahead and type that into the comments if you can as well. Questions to ask your doctor. Just as a reminder, guys, last week we had our inflammation talk. It was absolutely awesome. But if you are from the Chicagoland area, our next in-person event is going to be Tuesday, August 27th at 6 o'clock p.m. That's Tuesday, August 27th at 6 o'clock p.m. We just had our inflammation talk last week. It was awesome, packed house, and it's awesome to be able to meet new people. It's also kind of sad too, because you see people who aren't getting any answers. I'm excited to give them the answers and the right testing, um, so that they can find some solutions to their health problems, especially. So, guys, if you suffer with anything in regards to weight loss resistance, or anything involving your immune system, hormones, infertility, thyroid, arthritis, type 2 diabetes, autoimmune conditions, problems with your hormones, please make sure that you get registered and you want to work with us directly. Come to that inflammation event. That's Tuesday, August 27th at 6 o'clock p.m. Okay. 6 o'clock p.m. Now, I put in our Linktree profile. You can find it on Facebook, YouTube. If you're watching on Rumble, I can't see any of your comments. So thank you very much for watching, by the way. But you'll be able to see where to register for if you follow that link tree. Click the link and you'll be able to see where you can register for that inflammation event. Um, and if you click on that link, you can register in about 30 seconds for that event. We also have some free resources for you, free home workouts with minimal equipment. I know a lot of people have already downloaded that, but that'll give you a lot of great resources as far as how I think that a lot of people should be working out. I'm going to talk about that and touch on that briefly if you continue watching. And if you aren't from the Chicagoland area, but you live in the continental United States, you can find a Wellness Way doctor if you click that link. Just put in your zip code, and you'll be able to find one that's closest to you. Most Wellness Way doctors can work remotely as well. Although for us, like personally, I'm not working remotely just because that schedule got filled up very quickly as well. I'd love to be able to see you, but just with time and things like that, I just don't have the time to be able to see you because we see a lot of people in person from the Chicagoland area. But you can find a Wellness Way doctor if you click that link. So make sure that you do that as well. Okay. Now, I'm going to tell you something. If you don't like hard questions, then turn off this broadcast. Okay. If you don't like hard questions, please turn it off because I'm going to ask some very hard questions. And in fact, they might be questions that might offend you a little bit. But I will always say this: no one ever changes unless they're first offended. And I'm not trying to offend you or stuff, but I'll be very honest, real, and candid with you, only because I don't believe in dancing around issues when they should be addressed. Okay. I don't believe in dancing around issues when they should be addressed. So I'm going to ask some very tough questions as well that you should be asking your doctor, and they may offend you a little bit. And everybody's so worried about offending and things like that. And I always say, actually, offending is good because that's the only impetus for change to take place in through your life. Okay. Now, I'm going to give you a reason why I have this up here. If you go on our link tree, we have a t-shirt store. Here's our most popular t-shirts. And yes, it probably offends some people as well. This was very popular a few years ago during all of the COVID, et cetera, lockdowns and things like that. And we had this shirt, I think over 1,000 of them sold, and they're called Mandate Burpees. If you go onto our t-shirt store, you can get them in men's sizes, different colors. You can get them in women's sizes. You also can get it as a sweatshirt too, as we come into the winter months. And people ask me, like, what do you mean about mandate burpees? And here's how I got the idea, because if you look over to the right, this is our governor, who is not the picture of health by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, our governor, I will actually say it, is obese. Now, just so you know, is that we see people who suffer with weight loss resistance and things like that. I don't have any problem with someone being obese or being overweight, but I have a problem with you staying that way, because people know how catastrophic being obese is to a person's health. And the reason why I put mandate burpees is because probably our governor, and I hope he's listening to this, our governor could probably stand to learn how to do a burpee. Now, the reason behind this t-shirt was, if you want to mandate any kind of medical procedure, then you should just as easily mandate something that's going to improve your health. And that would be a certain type of exercise. And I just imagine all the people who are just absolutely pro mandate medical procedures would be up in arms if we were going to mandate a certain form of exercise. And I've done some tongue-in-cheek videos in regards to that as well. But if you have a governor that says, yeah, we're going to mandate this, but in the same breath, he refuses to mandate any kind of movement or exercise, then I have a problem with that. Okay. It's just as unconstitutional mandate exercise than it is to mandate any kind of forced medical procedure, especially. But where I have a problem is that our governor decided to call people who valued constitutional freedom and who also valued the ability to be able to choose. And when he did that, and for people who value their health and actually take care of their health, and to actually call his constituents grifters, then I have a problem with that. That's why I came up with that idea behind the T-shirt. And if you feel so inclined, or if you feel led, then you can give Governor Pritzker. You can order this T-shirt from our website. You can order probably a triple extra large. Okay. So, but just like I said, I have no problem with people being overweight, obese. I struggle with it. I'm going to show you a picture about that. But I have a problem with people staying where they're at and just blaming other people for all of their problems, especially. Okay. I told you I was going to be a little bit offensive. This comes from the British Medical Journal. This is very, very important. I want you to pay attention, close attention to this study. It's called Association Between Changes in Carbohydrate Intake and Long-Term Weight Changes, a prospective cohort study. They looked at 136,000 men and women aged 65 years and younger, okay? They had to be free of diabetes, cancer, cardiovascular disease, respiratory disease, neurodegenerative disorders, gastric conditions, chronic kidney disease, and also an autoimmune condition known as systemic lupus, okay? Now, here's what the conclusion of this study found, looking at over 100,000 people. The findings in this suggest or highlight the potential of the importance of carbohydrate quality and source for long-term weight management, especially for people with excessive body weight, okay? Limiting added sugar, sweetened beverages, refined grains, and starchy carbohydrates in favor of whole grains, fruit, and non-starchy vegetables may support efforts to control weight. Basically, in the study, what they found was the more that you consumed refined grains, processed foods, sugar-sweetened beverages, and things like that, the more you did that, the more weight that you gain, especially, and they measured this over 4 years and took the next 4 years and the 4 years after that. So, and I'll talk to you about this just for a little bit. But basically what they said is the more carbs that you consumed, the easier it was for people to actually gain weight. What's the answer for this? Well, we've been doing this for years. It's called a no sugar diet. You know what's really interesting is I had 2 people who came into the office today who were either straight type 2 diabetic or pre-diabetic, who came and retested, and they no longer have those things. Okay. And in fact, one of them has lost about 50 pounds, gotten off of blood pressure medication, was a straight type 2 diabetic, elevated liver enzymes, you name it, all kinds of problems. And you can see all those things return to normal. And yes, what did we do? It was a no sugar diet. It doesn't mean no carbohydrate diet, but it means you're severely restricting the types of carbohydrates that you are actually consuming. And there's a free download that you can download this on our link tree, the Wellness Way No Sugar Nutritional Guide. And this gives you what exactly you should be doing as far as avoiding certain types of carbohydrates. Okay. So, and here's the idea behind it. And there are people who say, "Oh, I don't consume a lot of sugar." I'm like, "You consume a ton of carbohydrates." Most of the time, when people say they don't consume sugar, it just means I'm not consuming the white, finely granulated powder that you're addicted to. No, it's not cocaine. It's actually sugar. But this, if you look at it on the right, there's a difference between the left and the right. The left, yes, there are carbohydrates in it in broccoli. And yes, the right also has a lot of carbohydrates in it. But if you look at this, both of them fill up the plate. But this broccoli probably has, I'm going to guess, but probably about 20 grams of carbs. But if you ate the same volume of food, there's going to be probably 400 to 500 grams of carbs in the same volume of food. So the types of carbohydrates that you're eating, they absolutely matter, guys. And in fact, if you eat a plate of broccoli, you're pretty much done and full. You're like, I don't want any more. But if you have a plate of these, probably you want to keep eating them. And this is what people do. And the thing is, guys, is most people vastly underestimate how many grams of sugar and carbohydrate that they're actually getting. Okay. So one of the things that you have to ask yourself, especially when you talk about a no sugar diet, and these are some things that I had to actually ask myself too, is number one, is an inflammatory food. This is why getting your foods tested is absolutely important. I had a woman who came in, lots of quote unquote leaky gut symptoms and things like that, and has about 35 food allergies. There's some people, they might have 7 or 8, but it has to do with proteins that aren't broken down that happen to leak past the gastrointestinal barrier. You're going to have an immune system reaction to it. Okay. So that's why you have to ask yourself, is this an inflammatory food? And a lot of people I know, influencers, they throw around the whole idea of inflammation. They have no idea what they're talking about. They probably don't even know that it's an immune response. But there's a very specific way in which you have to handle inflammation, especially. Now, how much protein? Well, if you know, the Wellness Way had a protein challenge, and I would say if you're shooting around 1 gram of protein per pound, then you're starting off in the right direction. But this is also going to be highly dependent on how much exercise that you're getting. If you're weightlifting, and if you're doing a lot of exercise, then probably sticking to close to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight is going to be a little bit better for you. Okay. But the other thing too, when you're talking about blood sugar, is weightlifting is very, very important. Okay. And the reason why is you want to build muscle. The more that you start losing muscle, muscle is metabolically active. In fact, muscle doesn't become insulin resistant, which is why you actually want to try to put on as much muscle as possible. But Dr. Nate, how do you put on muscle? Well, you need a lot of heavy compound movements. You need to start exercising the big movers and shakers, which are going to be your hips, your butt, your legs, your back. Those are the easiest places in order to put on muscle. Okay. Now, this is me. I'm not trying to brag, but this is me. This was about 7 years ago. Okay. This is about 7 years ago. This is when they said, once you hit 40, your life is over. You just become a fat blob and everything just shuts down. Well, this is me at 40 years of age. So people say, well, what were you doing? Well, at that time, and this picture was taking, I wasn't doing bodybuilding. Okay. I was doing compound lifts. Compound lifts were things like deadlifts, back squatting, front squatting, Olympic lifts like cleans, jerks, snatches, things like that. So I was doing a lot of compound lifts that require a lot of joints in order to move. I was doing high intensity training. So I was training 4 to 5 times a week, doing training that got me very, very tired doing it. And I also was getting adequate sleep, lots of protein I was getting in. And then, yes, I'm going to say it because I don't believe that you should act professional at all times, but I was not eating like an asshole. Yes, I can say that. That's fine. And you know, when I just said that, that perked up your ears and now you're going to start listening. Okay. It's called a pattern interruption. I wasn't eating like an asshole, which a lot of people actually do, and they have no idea that they're doing it, or they're completely unaware of what they're eating. But when I was doing that, that's what I looked like. And I'm going to show you a comparison. This was me right here, 13 years younger. So I was 13 years younger. And this is my beautiful wife. I don't understand why she married me looking like that. I would have been worried if I was her. And by the way, happy 19th anniversary to my wife. That's going to be on Wednesday. I'm going to see you in a little bit. I can't wait to see you. So she married me at my worst, yeah, if you can believe that. So I was 13 years younger, but what was I doing? No high intensity training. I was stressed out terribly, wasn't getting enough sleep, and lots of junk food and soda. Okay. Lots of junk food, lots of soda. I would eat whatever I want, whenever I want. And you can tell that I was doing that. And I also got some testing done back then, and I was actually pre diabetic at that point. So, not in good shape. And I couldn't believe that because I flunked my life insurance test. And they're like, yeah, you're pre diabetic, you're high risk for cardiovascular disease. I'm like, that's impossible. I'm still like in my late 20s. And they're like, that's not what your labs are showing. So I wasn't in good shape when that happened. The biggest thing that I will tell you is this is that I look back, I'm like, I was so mentally weak. I was so mentally weak. I had an excuse for everything. And people say, well, what made you change? And you know what made me change? I became offended. I was so sick and tired of where I was at. I was tired of me giving excuses for this and for that. I was offended that I became so mentally weak. And that's the thing is that we're waiting for the next fad diet. We're waiting for the next thing to do rather than just hire a coach who's just going to slap a fish right in your face and say, you need to start changing some of these things in a nice way, obviously. But what made me change was I became offended with where I was at, in that position. So when people say, what was your secret? It was consistency and it was time. But the biggest shift that I will tell you was the one that occurred between my ears. And that's one of the biggest things I will say is that people want to work with me and they're unwilling to change their mind or change their perspective and start to shift their mindset to one of accountability versus one of being a victim, then you're never ever going to change. And the reason why is because you're a square peg that's trying to fit into a round hole. Okay. You're a square peg trying to fit into a round hole. And I meet people all the time and they need such a huge fundamental mindset shift and it doesn't happen. And they're the people who end up just giving up. And I'm like, I don't care if you fail, but where it becomes a problem is if you fail and then you blame and you fail, you give up, and then you blame other people for all of your problems. And that's why it's very hard to change if you are a square peg that's designed for a round hole. You need to be a round peg that's designed for a round hole. And I don't have a secret formula as far as what it is in order to change your mindset. Because people say, what was your secret? And I was like, well, I became so sick and tired of where I was at that I stuck with it long enough so now it becomes a habit. So I don't have to be emotional. I don't have to listen to motivational videos in order for me to be able to change or hit the gym or just do some of the right things. So let's go over questions to ask your doctor. Okay. Just remember, guys, if you're watching right now, say hello. Let me also know where you're watching from as well. Don't forget to share this video as well, because it may offend someone enough in order for them to change. Okay. So here's some questions that I really want you, next time you go to the doctor, please ask them these questions. Is this, I had a patient who came in, she was scared to death because they are demanding that she gets all of these quote unquote vaccines. And so here's the question I want you to ask them, because people talk a lot about this when it comes to viruses and bacteria and things like that. Why is it that two people can be exposed to the same virus or the same bacteria, yet they can have a vastly different result? Why is that? Why is that? It's kind of like saying this. Why can two people, you have a 135-pound weight that's on the ground, two people exposed to the same weight, one person can't pick it up, the other one can, okay? And here's what it comes down to. It's the strength of the host. It's the strength of the host. So all the things that we do in our office is really designed to make you stronger and to make you more adaptable to any environment. It's not to make you weaker to your environment, but it's to make you stronger to your environment. That's one of the biggest things that I will tell you is that most of what healthcare is about today is just about trying to weaken the environment to an already weakened host versus trying to strengthen the person to any environment. So it comes down to the strength of the host, the strength of how strong that person's immune system is. Okay. Here's another question you should ask your doctor. Because a lot of times you go in and there's some abnormal blood work that's going on. And this is also true. I see so many doctors say, oh, diabetes is just genetic. And I'm like, well, if it's genetic, And why did two people actually reverse it just today, just going over their testing? And if it's genetic, because a lot of times people will say, oh, well, I have asthma, I have allergies, it's just genetic. And I'm like, really? If it's genetic, why don't I take asthma medication anymore? If it's genetic, why don't I take allergy medication anymore? Because if it's genetic, there's no way that I can heal from it. I never healed from it when I didn't know what to do in order to be able to heal from it. But it's been 20 years since I've taken allergy medication, 20 years since I've taken over 20 years since I took any kind of asthma medication as well. But it never got better when I kept believing it was all based on genetics. So this is what you're asked your doctor, because a lot of times doctors can't give you a good reason. They'll just throw out the whole genetics argument. This is what you ask him. Doctor, if it's genetic, then why did I develop my condition now instead of at birth? Here's what's so interesting is I developed asthma at 4 years of age and terrible allergies not long after that. But you have to go back and you have to say, what caused that hyperimmune system response? I know exactly what it is. I know exactly what it is and how long it started to happen after certain procedures were taking place, which caused my immune system just to go into overdrive, especially. And I want to give you an example. This right here, this is an x-ray of a young girl, just 10 years of age. She was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. We took an x-ray into the abdomen, and if you look at this, look at the amount of bowel gas, distended bowels that you see going on this x-ray. This is one of the worst x-rays that I've ever seen as far as gastrointestinal inflammation. Yes, an x-ray is something that you can take in order to look at gastrointestinal inflammation. So she was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. Okay. Here's what's interesting. She was diagnosed at 10 years of age. I'm like, if it's genetic, then why did she start expressing all that at 10 years of age? Not right immediately at birth. But here's what's so interesting is that she had a lot of things, warning signs that things were going wrong at that point until finally the dam broke. And now she had something as serious as ulcerative colitis. She was a very colicky baby. She had had gastrointestinal bloating forever. In fact, her parents couldn't figure out why she had such a protruding belly, and that's just gastrointestinal bloating, lots of antibiotics and things like that. And basically, what she did is their parents did everything that they were supposed to in order to raise a quote unquote healthy child. Yet this is what the result is. And do you know what the prognosis was? Lifetime of sickness and going on steroid medication and immunosuppressants for the rest of her life. Okay. And I guarantee you that won't be her future. Not as long as I have any power to be able to change that. And her parents are willing to change a lot of things. And this is why, guys, if your doctor calls it an illness, then it eliminates any power for you to be able to change it, eliminates all hope. This is one of the first things I talk about in the inflammation talk is, do you have an injury or do you have an illness? This is what's so interesting is if I have a scab on my knee, we call it an injury. If I have a sprained ankle, we call it an injury. We don't call it autoimmunity. If I sprain my ankle, it gets red, swollen, hot. You don't say my immune system is attacking itself. No, it's not. It's trying to clean up damaged tissue. So you have to decide, is what I'm suffering with right now, is it an injury or is it an illness? And we look at it, if you know that the body is a self-healing, self-regulating organism that's always trying to heal, is always trying to adapt as much as possible, then maybe, just maybe, what you're suffering from is an injury, but you don't know how or why you are injuring it. That's why you have to start looking at things from a different perspective. But doctors will always call things, like ulcerative colitis or bloating or asthma, allergies, and they call it an illness. And they're just because they don't know the mechanism of why it happens. They just say it's just genetic. Okay. So moving on to this, you ask your doctor the next question. Doc, what percent of my condition is genetic? What percent? Okay. And which genes specifically are involved? And what percent of my condition is based off of lifestyle or anything like that? And you probably will see their eyes just glaze over when you start asking tough questions. Okay. And here's the idea when it comes to genes. You got to think of it like this. Genes are the loaded gun, lifestyle pulls the trigger. Do you have a lifestyle that's beating up your genes? And this is why when you get people coming in and they're in their 40s or 50s, and they have just done terrible things to their body and they can't figure out why they don't feel well, why they're fatigued, low energy, they don't sleep well, they have blood sugar problems. Well, they've been beating themselves up for a long period of time. And remember, your genetic expression changes with what your lifestyle is actually doing. It's like coming to the scene of an accident and you see skid marks, and your conclusion is skid marks must cause accidents. And this is what a lot of people do. They look at the damaged, beat up genes and they say, well, the genes are actually what's causing it. It's like maybe your lifestyle is what is beating up your genes. Okay. Here's another question that you can ask your doctor. Doctor, what is your plan for me moving forward? What's your plan for me moving forward? And I ask a lot of people this as well. I had a young woman and I felt just awful for her. In fact, a lot of times when some people come in, they just been through the ringer and they come in on like their last hope. And it's tough. Psychologically, it's very tough because I hurt with the patients. But this woman has a rash all over, terrible bloating, um, terrible fatigues, very hard for her to be able to even get out of bed, terrible hormone issues that are going on. And then she was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. And I asked her, I said, what is your doctor's plan moving forward? She just looked at it and she says, there is no plan. There is no plan moving forward. There is no plan for restoration. There's no plan to improve their health. And it's just drugs, immunosuppressants, and just manipulate. And if it's already happening in somebody's 20s, I wish they would get to the reason why, because someone in their 20s can recover and heal a lot better than someone in their 50s or 60s, especially. But you have to ask your doctor, doctor, if you want me to go on this medication, what is your plan moving forward? Or if you're diagnosed me with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, what is your plan moving forward? And usually, guys, there is no plan. There's no plan for restoration, it's just manipulation with more and more drugs, things like that. Here's another question to ask your doctor. Doctor, how many people have you personally helped to reduce or to eliminate their medications for this condition? This is an interesting one. How many people have you personally helped to reduce or eliminate their medications for this condition? This is true for anything that doctors want to put you on, especially when it comes to chronic degenerative illness, especially for the rest of your life. Okay. Now, I will also tell you this. Doctors are trained on how and when to put you on a medication, but you can ask them, do you have any training on how to get me off of this medication? Because the number of people that we've been able to, that doctors have actually said, because I can't reduce your medication, but doctors sure as heck can look at this and say, yeah, you don't need to be on this medication. But the number of people who have been able to get off of blood pressure medication or thyroid medication or all these different medications is just, it's an insane amount when people are finally starting to get to the reason why and understand that the body is designed to heal the way that it's supposed to. But doctors never ever take the initiative, in my opinion, to be able to help people get off of the medication. So you want to ask them, how many people have you personally been able to get off of this medication? Now, the biggest thing that I will tell you is that they're just not trained on how to do it. They're trained on when to put you on, but are they trained on how to do the right things in order to get you off? And people, I know that you whine and complain and things like that. And I understand your frustration, but you have to understand this, that in healthcare today, which is basically an insurance healthcare model, it pays for encounters. It doesn't pay for outcomes. It pays for encounters, meaning the number of people that you see, and it doesn't pay for outcomes. You want to know something? Is that my job is based on outcomes because insurance won't pay for it. And so you better start getting better because you're not going to continually pay for you to stay chronically sick. And in fact, I always tell people, if I say this, I want to have this conversation with you one time and that's it. And at some point, I really don't want you to need my help. I want to teach you how to be able to take care of yourself so that you don't need my help and we don't have to dump a bunch of supplements in you. And in fact, I say, if you're taking the same amount of supplements 6 months to a year from now, then please do one thing, fire me. And if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, I'll probably fire you first because it is, energizing to see people get well. And it's exhausting to see people stay chronically sick and not do anything in order to move their health forward, especially. Okay. Here's another question to ask your doctor. Doctor, are you willing to spend time to teach me about the best nutrition for me based on specific testing? Are you willing to sit down and spend time to teach me? How many doctors are willing to sit down and teach you other than say this, avoid saturated fat, do the Mediterranean diet, but they won't tell you how to do it. And that's why there's very little when it comes to healthcare with the ins and outs of exactly how to do that. It's just like, just do this, but how? So are they willing to sit down and spend time with you? That's one of the biggest complaints is like doctors never want to spend any kind of time with me. Well, that's because they need to see a certain number of people because they work for, they don't work, on their own. They can't set their own schedule. They need to reach a number of patients per day, especially when they're working for a healthcare organization and they need to meet numbers and quotas and goals and things like that. And so sitting down and working on transforming your life is not in their best interest. And it comes back to this because the insurance healthcare model pays for encounters, not outcomes. And if they're actually teaching you on what to do, then there's going to be less encounters, but better outcomes. But the whole system's not set up for that. Okay. You have to remember this. They won't test any further than what a drug solution will provide. And I know people reach out to me and they're so frustrated. And they tell me about their frustrations. And the thing is doctors won't test for things in which they can't give you a drug for as well. And this is why, guys, testing many times is so inadequate because if there's not a drug for it, then they're not going to test for it. And that's why this young girl, she was so frustrated. She's like, well, what about my thyroid? And they're like, we're not testing for that. We can't give you a medication. There's no medication answer other than the one test, TSH, maybe T3, T4, but they're not testing for all of those other things as well. Okay. Here's another question to ask your doctor. Doctor, how can I get more fit? Okay. Maybe even ask them what the definition of fitness is. The definition of fitness is the ability to perform work over broad time and modal domains. That's the definition of fitness. People try to come up with their own definition of fitness, and I'm like, that doesn't work. So, but then ask them, how often do you exercise? And guys, these are things that I'm willing to answer for you as well. How often do you exercise? For me, 4 to 5 times a week. That's how often I exercise. And it's very, very specific as far as what I do. I'm not a bodybuilder. I'm not trying to set records when it comes to sprints or things like that. But I am doing fitness, the things to make me more athletic, to make me stronger for as long as possible. And I do realize that at some point, I'm not going to be as strong as I used to be. I realize at some point I'm still going to die. This is what I tell patients. Doesn't matter how good I take care of you. At some point, we're all going to die. Death gets 1 out of 1 people. Okay. However, when a lot of people come to me, this is some of the first things that we do. So let's say we have someone who comes in and they have a lot of inflammation, a lot of fatigue, poor energy. They may have some blood sugar issues. So one of the first things I would say is hey, just start moving more, and this is called NEAT. And basically, what this is called non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So this would be like, for example, hey, can you get 5,000 or 10,000 steps in? It doesn't require a lot of energy, doesn't require a lot of output, doesn't require a lot of doesn't deplete your hormones. It's just basically, it's not elevating your heart rate that much, but it's just still movement. Then once people get better, then we start moving our way towards, hey, I want you to start getting more functionally strong. This is why I want you to get into a CrossFit gym and to improve your strength, improve the way that you move, and then to also improve your cardiorespiratory endurance. And it doesn't have to be 20 or 25 or 30, 35 minutes every single day. And in fact, most days, I'm actually just increasing my heart rate to a high level for maybe 10 minutes on average. And that's it. So that's why you have to know, where do I need to start and where do I need to take myself through? Because for 90% of people, as they make it through, I'm like, hey, this is what I want you to start to do. Because if they'll say like, hey, how do I get my bone mass better? How do I put on muscle? And it's like, that's why you need to be doing compound lifts. And please get with someone who knows how to do it. You're not going to learn it at the YMCA. You just aren't. Okay. So, part of me wishes I could go in and teach these people one-on-one. However, I've left that up to the gym owners to be able to do it. But it's very difficult for people to want to walk into a gym because that takes a little bit of courage in order to do that. Okay. Here's another question that you should ask your doctor. Doctor, which ingredient in this recommended vaccine is your favorite? Which one is your favorite? And you will actually, they'll probably quote unquote, what a brick, probably when you ask that, because a lot of them have no idea what's in them. Okay. Which ingredient in this recommended vaccine, which one is your favorite? Which one do you think works the most? Which one is your favorite? So just ask them that question. Okay. A lot of them will just say this. Well, this is just what the experts tell us to do, and I trust the experts. In fact, a lot of people just say that because they don't want to think. They don't want to. They just want to just put something over their eyes, and they just want to say, we just have to trust, the experts. Well, the experts have been wrong with a lot of things. So if they say this is just what the experts tell us to do, and I trust the experts, then please run far away from them. And you know why I say that? When they say, yeah, we're the experts. Well, I want you to look at this picture. These are the experts who work in hospitals who, during the worst pandemic of our lifetime, were busy taping TikTok dances. They're all over the place. And I couldn't believe it. This makes me disgusted and sick to my stomach at the same time. So when we were going through the worst pandemic, here they were taping themselves dancing or taping themselves doing artificial emergency life-saving artificial respirations on people. And somehow that was supposed to be cute or that was supposed to be a joke. And I say this, if you had time to do a TikTok dance, then you either weren't busy or you were mentally ill. And I can't believe when they say we trust the experts and the experts were busy doing stupid stuff like that, especially. So here's my final thought. If your doctor can't answer these questions, or maybe if they get angry at you, chances are the emperor has no clothes. If they get angry at you, they probably don't know, or maybe they might realize, yeah, it's not going to work. Okay. Now, healthcare shouldn't be accept everything or you'll get nothing. Because I watch a lot of health influencers. Some of them are actually MDs, and they even have the gall to say this: is, hey, if you're not willing to do this, then have a heart attack and then and see if I'll be willing to actually save your life. Well, that's the purpose. Is doctors are designed to put out fires, but there's certainly their goal or reason for needing them shouldn't be to rebuild the house. So their job is to put out the fires, but when they put out the fire, their job is done. And then you need someone who knows how to rebuild the house after that. That's one of the most important things. You can't rebuild your house with a hose and an axe. They don't have the right tools or they don't have the right training in order to work on rebuilding the house. But the thing is just because you don't want them to, go on a medication forever, or because you want to take it a different approach, then they say, well, if you don't want to follow me on this, then maybe I won't be able to save your life if you need it at some point. So that's why I have Jim Jones on here, because it's almost become a cult. It's almost like a cult following, in regards to that. Okay. Now, I want to be very clear about something. If your doctor is not willing to question their profession, okay, if they're not willing to question their profession, then they're either a zealot, a coward, or they're just intellectually lazy. If they're not willing to question things that they do within their profession, they're either a zealot, a coward, or they're just intellectually lazy. And here's the sticker. This is true for every healing profession. This is true for every healing profession. This is even true in my profession. There's a lot of things that are done within the chiropractic profession that I don't agree with, and I'll even call it out as well. I don't agree with that. There's a lot of stupid, useless things that I learned in school that I had to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars just to be able to get my diploma that I didn't agree with as well. So it's just stupid. It's useless. It's outdated. But this should be true. Every person that's in the healing arts should actually call out stupid things that are being taught within any healing profession. And I have problems even with my profession too, with some things that I don't agree with as well. And it doesn't mean that I don't love my profession. It doesn't mean that I don't love what I do, but I think that we should always be growing, adapting, changing according to what works and what doesn't work. And this is why, guys, even in my profession, being a chiropractor, I've referred to other people and I've just done this like, oh, I'm sorry. I can't believe that they were just doing such stupid stuff. So this is why I believe that every single chiropractor should have a great working knowledge of physiology. I think that every single one of them should really be a Wellness Way doctor and be able to learn this because, guys, it's hard. We learn every single week. Tomorrow, I'll be on for an hour learning. I spend 2 to 3 hours every single week teaching myself, learning things on my own. And then if you run through enough labs, then clinically you start to become excellent at what you do because there is no protocol, for people. Every single person is different, unique, and individualized. But this is why today, two people pre-diabetic and diabetic, no longer diabetic, but they will be if they don't follow through with what they need moving forward, especially. Okay. Now, I remember I had a person who came in to the office, a wonderful individual, but he had hurt his back and it had been almost 4 weeks. And he literally walked around with a back brace and with a cane. He wasn't getting any better. And he said, "Doc, if you no one's giving me any kind of answers, but if you can't help me, I'm done. I can't work. I can't do anything. I don't know what to do." And then I remember after a few weeks, he's doesn't have a back brace, doesn't have a cane, and he got back to work within about 3 weeks. And he looked at me and with the most sincere heart, he said, "Doc, you've changed my life." And then you know what I told him next? I said, "Imagine if we never met." And do you know how many people look at me and they said, "Doc, you changed my life?" Or how many people have said, "I'd be dead if I hadn't met you." And then I just tell them, imagine if we never met. Imagine what would happen if we had never met. And I'm so glad that I ran across the Wellness Way when my wife was sick, because my wife would have stayed sick had we not taken a different approach, had we not tested properly, and had we not restored her health. And I guarantee you, I wouldn't have a little 1.5-year-old that I'm going to see here in just a couple of minutes. I wouldn't have him walking up to me when I come home and he's saying, "Daddy." I guarantee that wouldn't have happened. That's why I'm so thankful for what I do every single day. But if you're going to change your life, if you want your life changed, then you need to start doing things differently. You have to do it, you have to look at it from a different perspective. And that's why, guys, our next inflammation talk is going to be Tuesday, August 27th at 6 o'clock p.m. Please make sure that you get registered for it. If you click on our link tree, which you'll see in the comments of this video, but also you'll be able to see it on the profile. You'll be able to click on there to be able to register. This is an in-person event, guys. If you're not from the Chicagoland area, we don't do it virtually anymore. But please come to that. We have a special gift for you when you attend that event. And then also you can order your "You Don't Know Squat" t-shirts, mandate burpees, and you can stick it to your governor, especially with that. And we also have a free downloads, the Wellness Way no sugar nutrition guide. You can find a Wellness Way doctor if you click the link. And then also free workouts that you can do at home with very little exercise equipment. It's a great book. I think 75 different workouts that you can do with little to no equipment, especially. So guys, questions to ask your doctor. I hope the next time that you go into your doctor that you have these questions to be able to ask them. And I actually hope that they can answer those questions as well. I will answer almost any question when I'm in a consult with a person. You'd be amazed that someone asked me today. They asked me this question. They said this: "Are you a believer?" I said, "Do you mean I'm a Christian?" They're like, "Yeah." I said, "Yes, I am born again. Jesus is Lord." I have no problems answering that question. No problems at all being able to tell people that. And that's why after every consult, I tell them this. I said, "Do you have any questions or do you have any concerns?" And I will answer every single one of those questions. But I'll also answer a lot of questions that people usually won't ask their doctor as well. So questions to ask your doctor. Make sure that you ask your doctor in a respectful manner, obviously. But guys, if you know someone who needs to hear this video or watch this video, then please make sure that you share this video with other people. Please make sure you get registered for that inflammation talk if you're from the Chicagoland area. And please make sure that you get those downloads as well. I'd love to share them with you, and I want to change your life, even if you're not from the Chicagoland area. And please also make sure, I want to see thousands of people wearing a Mandate Burpees t-shirt, okay? And even if you can't do a burpee, at some point, make it your goal to be able to do that, because I want to see you wearing that t-shirt. I want to see you wear it with pride and wear it with a changed life as well. So questions, guys, to ask your doctor. Thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you guys very soon. Next week, I'll be live as well, either with a new topic or question and answer. but I appreciate you watching as well. And if you follow it or you like our page, thank you very much. I love you. I appreciate all of you. And guys, I hope to see you next week. Be well, be safe. And as I always say, remember who you are.